do not watch my films very often. Last night I was curious to be there during the screening because the audience basically is French audience. And I asked to show Bad Lieutenant for two reasons. Number one, the French audience believes that I stopped making films in the 80s. But they have not seen any of my last 35 or 40 films, which is not completely true. Of course, I have seen quite a few. Secondly, a film that, although it was shot in English and in New Orleans, is a very film of mine. And I kept saying a Bavarian film. And that's why I'm wearing this Bavarian jacket, to just show, yes, I'm Bavarian culture. Not so much German. And I have left my country, but never left my culture. It's a little bit like Scotland versus the United Kingdom. Yes, it's a separate culture, it's a separate dialect, it's a separate way of experiencing the world. And Bavarians always had a more exuberant fantasy, and like the last mad king of the Bavarians, Ludwig II, who built these dream castles, which are the role model now for Disneyland castles. So, but that was 100 years before, or more than 100 years before, before Walt Disney built these Disneyland sort of castles. And this kind of Baroque or Renaissance kind of figures you see in German cinema. I say it with caution, German cinema, because Fassbinder, for example, also very, very Bavarian. And you can tell very quickly, this is not a Teutonic German. No, not so much. I think quite a few of my documentaries have been seen here or in Europe in general. And today the situation is different because almost all my films are accessible via internet. You can stream them, download them, you can buy DVDs or Blu-rays. And this is why all of a sudden very, very young audiences are coming at me. I get emails with very fascinating new questions about specific films that I made 40 years ago from kids that are 15 or 16. And the same thing also in France. Very, very young people all of a sudden start to discover my films because they are available. It's hard to say because when you have a digital camera, if you have a cell phone, and there are at least 3 billion people, maybe 4 billion people out there who have cell phones and do make photos and send them out to the internet. It hasn't really contributed much to photography. It has contributed to, let's say, live events. There's an attack on a hotel in Mumbai, in India, and somebody who is in the elevator and just before the door closes snaps a few photos of gunmen storming into the corridor. So you have 3,000 million reporters out there. And of course that's a great achievement. And it has brought us images that we otherwise wouldn't have seen. But to the art of photography, it hasn't really contributed. It's still the photographers, still the real creators of photography. Same thing with cinema. Yes, it's wonderful that you can have a digital camera of high quality for very little money, and you can edit your film on your laptop. So Of course, everybody can make a film nowadays, and that's a wonderful thing. But it hasn't really contributed that much to the culture of cinema.
Does that make it?
There's a culture of YouTube, for example, and we should take it seriously because there are things out there that are completely unexpected. But not a story like that around images of the desert. It doesn't happen. And what is also remarkable is the film didn't do well in theaters, but it was immediately out for streaming. And in streaming, it's exceptionally well received. A very huge number of people actually downloaded the film. So, of course, there are new ways of distribution. And arguably, my biggest success I ever had was on YouTube. And it was a film on texting and driving, which was done for AT&T, of course, later T-Mobile and Verizon and Sprint, and so all the big providers jumped on board about the dangers, the catastrophic dangers of texting while you are driving. Much more dangerous than being drunk and driving. So, and the film had a phenomenal success on YouTube. Well, first of all, texting and driving, it's called from 1 second to the next, originated through an advertisement agency that approached me, that they worked for AT&T, and I immediately said before they finished the sentence, I do not do commercials. And they said, why? And I said, I do not feel comfortable with consumer culture, and I do not want to participate in that respect. And they said, no, it's not a commercial. It's even against using the products, and it's a public service announcement. And they explained to it, and I thought for a moment, yes, I can do this. And so I stepped into it. A similar thing with the film on the internet, which originated as a project of short segments for YouTube. A segment, let's say, on the pioneers, a segment on cyberbullying, a segment on scientists who link up with the millions of video gamers for solving an unsolvable puzzle about folding of enzymes, and they actually solved it. So, but the moment I started to film, it became almost instantly clear to me, no, this is not the right format. We are not sitting in the right vehicle. And from day 2 of filming on, I said we have to make it into one coherent long film. And I just kept filming and saying it every day. We are wrong if we make separate short films for YouTube. And it ended in those who financed the film understanding what I was up to. And they were all overwhelmed by the response that the film had. Yes, but don't be the doomsday sayer, because the film shows at least more than half of the film shows the absolute glories of the internet, and I'm absolutely not against it. We just have to create our own filters to sort out what should we do with the internet and what should we rather leave aside. It's a little bit. As the phenomenon is so young, so recent, we don't have built in the right understanding of it yet. It's a little bit like with the automobiles, when you look at 1950s, early Elvis time, the kind of gigantic, monstrous sofas of cars, and you would go to the drive-in theater and you would eat drive-in and you would banking drive-in and things like this. So today we have a different understanding. of vehicles. They are much smaller. We will move to electrical cars, maybe autonomous cars, or it's at the horizon. So it's a different understanding of the automobile. By the way, I saw something very significant recently in Las Vegas. You can do drive-through weddings. There are wedding chapels where you drive through and they drive you in a Cadillac of 1954 through it slowly and you do your wedding, drive-through wedding. But, and I swear to God, I'm not making it up, I saw advertising of an attorney. You can have your drive-through divorce. I'm not kidding you.
Only in America.
Only in Las Vegas. But what I'm trying to say is our understanding of cars has dramatically changed, and our understanding of the internet inevitably will somehow settle down and we'll see clearer structures in it and we'll know what to do with it. For example, I'm somebody who doesn't have a cell phone. For cultural reasons, I'm not nostalgic at all. But I want to meet human beings in person. Everything that's important I would not do via internet. I use the internet for emails and for, by the way, also for the shallow type of information. Some quick access to the not in-depth information.
I've always got that sense from your films that the camera is a tool to encounter people very directly.
For me, yes, but of course it's not that a camera encounters somebody like me. We are encountering, and of course I stylize it and I organize. I organize the encounter, and I create the content of the encounter.
And when you're interviewing subjects for your documentaries, where are you in relationship to the camera?
Normally right next to the lens, almost leaning at it. And of course it's not only where I am, it's the way you are listening. You are listening like, oh yeah, I want, with an attitude, yes, I want to have more, and you nod. And so it's a way to encourage and to be something different than a technical apparatus like a lens looking at you. No, I'm methodical one after the other, but they accumulated quickly because my output today is more than it used to be 30 years ago.
Why is that?
It's the urgency with which, and the vehemence with which projects are coming at me. And of course I can work faster. Number one, because many of the films, recent films, have not been produced by me, which almost took 75% of my time and energies, raising the finances, organizing everything. So that's one side. The other side is the technical things. You can film very easily, very quickly with a digital camera, and I edit digitally, and I can edit almost as fast as I'm thinking. So a film like Grizzly Man was edited in 9 days.
Did you say the projects are coming at you? Are those people proposing projects to you, or are you discovering new subjects?
All of a sudden there's a film there as if I had seen it on the screen. So it's very often uninvited guests.
So there's still new places you want to go, new things you want to film.
It's not so much new places. Of course, a film like Salt and Fire requires a very specific sort of landscape. Well, that happens quite often. The borderline between documentaries and scripted feature films is not so clear in my films.
It's true, I certainly
which is
agree.
okay, yeah.
But I feel like even between Queen of the Desert and this film, it feels like almost it feels so spontaneous, Salt and Fire.
Yeah.
The creation so natural that you arrived and then created.
In a way, yes, because Salt and Fire had a very specific urgency, because my shooting schedule shrank and shrank and shrank until I had only 16 days left for doing this film, due to unexpected things like the protagonist, a wonderful German actress, Veronika Ferris. Her father passed away just before we started filming. And I said to her, no matter what, there's more important things than movies. You have to bury your father first, and then you start traveling. So, and that made the shooting schedule even tighter. So it happens, and you have to live with it. Well, in the last film, Salt and Fire, I'm a co-producer, and I'm, in a way, I try to move back more into production, because what can I say? Queen of the Desert is one of those examples where I was not producer, and I was really implored and asked by the producer to allow a distribution company to modify the film. And they modified it in a way that the film was almost beyond recognition. And it turned out that this version didn't fly with any test audiences at all. So the film that you see today is my version. But these things can happen if you're outside of production and outside of all these things. Well, it does happen, but my attitude is this film will not be made if I do not somehow join forces together with people who are not competent. I have to run the show then, and of course I ran the production on the set more or less, so, and I had to bring everybody in line of doing it, although hardly anyone was paid, and later, a few years later, upon arriving in Thailand, I was immediately in handcuffs because I was on some wanted list, and authorities believed I was one of the producers who had left scorched earth. So no, I normally do not like 3D. When I see something in the movies, I really do not feel right when it's in 3D. However, Cave of Forgotten Dreams was it was mandatory to do it in 3D. I never planned to do it in 3D, but when I saw the cave for the first time, I believed that the walls were pretty flat and paintings on it because I had seen photos. But being inside the cave, all of a sudden it turns out that there are wild curves and for example, a bulging rock was utilized by the painters for the bulging neck of a bison that's coming at you. So I thought it was mandatory to do it in 3D, and it was a good choice, even though the film still functions well in 2D. That's correct, yes. As I said, I'm not nostalgic, and if there's a new type of very small, flexible camera is wonderful. If you can use a drone, of course, the arsenal of what we are doing has improved and has been widened, and you can do digital tracking of a camera, which you would need in, let's say, a film that uses a lot of digital effects. For that, it's a wonderful tool, or Steadicam. You have new tools almost every day.
How are you working with Peter?
But I do not.
Zeit?
Sorry, but I do not use these tools hardly ever. I do not use digital effects, but barely ever. But I do use technical, practical tools like a drone, for example. No, there's never any playful sort of things that I experiment. We know very well this would be great if we had a helicopter, but a helicopter would be too expensive. So we better do it with a drone. And Peter Zeitling is somebody who has a very wonderful physical understanding of space, so he would, with his camera, create a choreography of actors moving around it. He moves in between them, and he's really, really very, very good at that. There was a significant encounter in Ethiopia for my volcano film. In the vicinity of a volcano, archaeologists and paleontologists were taking skeletal remains, fossilized remains of early Homo sapiens, 100,000 years back in time. And I asked one of them, do we have another 100,000 years on this planet? And after long thought, the scientist told me, and I think he's right, in about 1,000 years from now, our planet, our existence as a species on this planet will enter a very critical phase. And you hear it, I mean, when you hear Stephen Hawking, for example, giving us only 100 years, I do not agree with that. But we can become extinct for many reasons, and some of the reasons are basically self-inflicted. But I do believe that in about 1,000 years from now, our mistakes and our vulnerability will increase to such a degree that we'll be in a very critical moment.
Is the camera, the cinema, a tool for change in this regard?
No. You see, you cannot load everything on filmmaking and on cameras. I think the very basis is solid science, solid understanding of our situation, solid understanding how we make ourselves too much dependent on the internet, which is a scary thing, because if the internet is completely down, let's say solar flares of great intensity, all of a sudden our electricity grid is down, all our communications, all our bank transactions, all our everything, water supply, food supply, transportation, everything will be down. And then we'll be thrown back into the prehistoric situation of becoming hunters and gatherers. But in New York, in Central Park, there are only 500 squirrels for 11 million people. So we have to think what we should do, decentralize the internet, for example, much more.